Hello everyone and welcome to this, another episode of our Towns LP. My name is Splattercat, and I'm glad that you decided to join me here today. Where we had left off, we were building some furnishings for our dining room so that everybody could sit around and congregate and be friends and eat bread together, break bread, as all are wanting to do. And once this is up and running, we should see a sizable increase in happiness in our society. And as you can see, our little townies are running in here with their bread like, hooray! And they're eating their food. I have decided to keep this condo complex up here. It's a little ugly, like, I didn't leave myself a whole lot of room to build a nice looking, kind of rounding the front of it. It's going to look a little square, it's going to look a little terrible, but early game we don't really have a whole lot of options for making things look beautiful, but the side effect of keeping this building is that we can now furnish all this stuff. So what I'm going to do is just start clicking in beds randomly here, just so everybody has a bed to sleep in. That's going to help them restore their exhaustion a little quicker. It's going to help them get back into the fight. It's going to increase the amount of time that they can go before they have to go to sleep again. So there we are. There's some beds. Other things we'll consider putting in is we'll put in some bookcases for some of these people. So there we are. We'll just put in a bookcase for each person, because if they're in the radius of nice stuff, it makes them happier, and while they're sleeping, we want them to be happy. So there we are. This guy will get a bookcase, I don't know, at the foot of his bed maybe? Nah, we won't give him a bookcase. Screw that guy. Screw you, Beelzebut. You have a terrible name, therefore we won't give you cool stuff. It's like, but why? Alright, so the tables are going in now. And it looks like we've got plenty of space for another little grouping of tables and chairs. However, we don't have the wood supply. Right now, we are going through our wood rather rapidly, so in the interest of, what was that? Anytime anything dies, it makes me a little nervous. And so, I suppose I'll gather the carnivorous plant, because later on we can use carnivorous plants as booby traps, and then I'm going to cut down this forest so that we can have some more wood. And we'll cut that one as well, we'll cut you as well. We're going to save those for booby trap. As you can see, it made him bleed. It's unfortunate. It's kind of a dot. It should go away pretty shortly. It's not a very long duration debuff, but it is a debuff nonetheless. It can make fights down in the dungeon. Some of the monsters that make you bleed down in the dungeon can prolong the fight and make things a little painful for you by adding a bleeding debuff. And carnivorous plants are one of those things. We are going to cut these down as well. We're going to get this mine done so that we can get some more stone, because we don't have a lot of stone at the moment, and we could use a decent amount of stone for now. I am going to keep people whittling away at this mountain, and I know that's not the most entertaining thing to watch me do. I could do it off camera, but as I said, I wanted the first couple episodes to be unbroken gameplay, just so everybody gets a feel for the flow and the way things work. This mountain over here I am working on as well, but this one is a bit more important at the moment. I'm not really thinking about expanding towards the edge of the map too soon. Basically because sieges can spawn anywhere on the edge of the map, so I'm not going to really build this way. I'm just going to wall this off so in case they spawn over here, we don't have any issues on our hands when we do get our first little grouping of sieges. Now, we do need a better wood supply, so we have chopped down the trees over here. They should get right to that. Well, I guess as soon as they're done lollygagging. Come on, guys. Step it up a notch. Step it up a notch. And it looks like almost everybody is just blacked out at the moment. The first person to have a bed is Mrs. Turnbutt. So Mrs. Turnbutt has her own bed. But we are going to just start chopping things down like crazy. So I don't want any of these trees around. All these trees need to go. They all need to die. We are not in a tree-loving mood at the moment. We are in a inverse tree-hugging mood. We are in a tree-destroying mood. So instead of hugs, we give them condescending looks and just general grimaces, and we just don't like them very much. We don't much appreciate their kind at the moment. And as soon as everybody gets done lollygagging, we should actually be able to accomplish something. Let's see here. Is anybody actually working right now? Anybody? Where are half my people at the moment? I'm only seeing a few individuals, and that makes me wonder, oh, are they digging this mountain? They are. I forgot. So they're digging this mountain. I am going to gather up this mud and turn it into glass in a bit, but we're going to need some iron first. So once our first merchant shows up, I'm terrified that the moment I get rid of our market, a merchant's going to show up. Then I'm going to be like, no! And I'm not going to be able to buy any iron or something. That being said, I'll probably get a bone merchant or something stupid the first time. Something ridiculously useless. Something that I just simply cannot use. The amount of useful merchants is severely limited in this game. It's not like you you don't get merchants that you want most of the time. You get merchants that are just like, what are you doing on my property? Like, can you sell this? What are you vendoring dung? You're like, yes, my lord. Purchase your dung from me, my lord. Like, ugh. Away with you, dung merchant. Back to your shanty. The irony is that the dung merchant, watch, he's like a millionaire. He's living in a mansion, he's living large. It's like, holla. He's got all kinds of money. And I'm out here with my tiny little township, almost starving, eating nothing but bread. Everybody's got scurvy, malaria, rickets. He's back up at his dung mansion, living large. Well, that's fine. We aren't materialists here. And so hopefully nobody gets themselves caught in that stupid plant. Oh good, there's a tree keeper, but they're going to beat the hell out of him with hammers. Because if you can't solve a problem with finesse or intelligence, hit it with a hammer. That seems to solve it pretty well. And once these trees are all down and taken care of, we should have people that move out here and start doing some carpentry. We'll get these beds in place. We'll get some of these cabinets and all those things done. Hopefully they'll finish off our dining room as well. And then we'll give our people a little rest. Probably off camera, I'll just let the game run. I'll turn off sieges or something of that nature. Let it run until we get some more townies. It's something that I don't relish doing, but it's something that, like with the Prison Architect LP, it's bad game design, and unfortunately the game kind of forces you to work that way. You will never get immigrants if you just let your people work. I promise you, you will never see immigrants show up. I tried last LP and I went something like several months into my game before I saw my first immigrants that way. It's just not an efficient way to play, and so getting back to where we had left off with Mount Worthless, I would love to have 30 to 40 townies pretty soon, pretty early in the game, because that population makes the whole workflow go much, much, much better. Now, they are taking care of this forest down here, which is good. I actually feel, well, our work queue's pretty hefty for 10 people at the moment, and that's going to be the case for the foreseeable future. Now, I had considered digging kind of a cubic mine right here that just goes straight down to the lower layers, and that's going to allow me to build staircases one at a time, which is good. It's going to make everything look purty, because aesthetics are a big part of attracting more townies, and that's not true. That is something that I just say. So before you go, oh my god, I have to make my city more beautiful. Splattercat told me that if my city's ugly, I won't get immigrants. I always have to follow that up, because I will get the email, I promise you. I will get an email from some kid who's like, my town is gorgeous, it's amazing. Everything in it was built by Corrales. And I'm still not getting immigrants. Damn you, Splattercat. Why would you give me such bad guidance? So I have to follow through with, like, when I make a joke, sometimes I have to follow through just to avoid that email. So now that the trees are done, there's the sound of merry chopping. I like to think that they all whistle while they work. They're singing merry yo-ho-ho songs, like dwarves or something, while they're chopping down trees. In reality, they're probably all miserable, just cursing my name, hoping that I die of the mumps. All of them are hoping that I get lupus. Speaking of lupus, while I'm on the subject, I was driving down the highway the other day, and there was a sign that said, "So I have lupus." And it wasn't so much that the signpost said that the person had lupus, but the signpost had this lady who looked really happy, like, you could tell that they just grabbed like a random picture from some casting agency, and this lady looks totally stoked to have lupus. She's like, "So I have lupus." Like, that was the intonation of her voice I got when I read it in my head. And I was thinking, like, nobody had to have looked at this signpost, because who could... Is that really if your reaction to getting lupus is that merry, I'm not sure what to say to you as a human being. Like, there is no part of lupus, like, there is no sentence that begins with, "So I have lupus, but today turned out to be a really great day." Like, you could get lupus and then win the lottery right after, and I'm pretty sure your day would still be marred by the fact that you had caught lupus. But strange signposts aside, I'm pretty sure that my citizenry are more or less just, they speak my name through their teeth. It's not like they talk about Splattercat happily, but that's fine, because we'll throw them out the medieval airlock. So, everything's looking nice here, and I'm going to do a little test. Let's take a look at Arabella de Hats and see if she's happy or not. So we'll find her on our roster here, and we'll see how all these things are working. And just letting it run. It looks like we've gained task bread. So we got about 10 happiness while we're in there, and it does deteriorate with time while they're running around. It seems like my townies work a lot longer than they did before, in between kind of breaking off and going to sleep and eating, so it seems like they spend less time with leisure activities, and that means that we get a little more work done. So I feel like the workflow is moving a little quicker. I can't guarantee that that's a change that actually occurred, but I feel like it has occurred. It looks like they're spending a reasonable amount of time on the pedal bike still, just milling all of our flour and making sure that we have lots of pre-cooked materials, and the mountain is getting slowly smaller. That's good. That's what I like to see. Let's get rid of the next layer there. And over here we're going to start digging downwards as well because I want to get ready for the dungeons. So we'll give ourselves a little space on this end, but we will line it up just to make sure. And unfortunately, I didn't click my button properly. There we are. And so what we'll do... And that looks kind of square. There we go. That looks more square. Let me count it just to make sure. So we've got... There's 5, there's 10, 12. And then there's 5, there's 10 and 12. Wow, I can't believe I eyeballed that appropriately. That is great. Usually I am just horrible at eyeballing things, and I end up with weird oblong buildings, and then people come and laugh at me and give me swirlies. They come over to my house and knock on my door, and they're like, Splattercat, your building was oblong. Present forth your head for the swirly. I'm like, okay. Go ahead and give me swirlies. You can't break my pride. And so now that we're digging downwards to the dungeon, it should only take us like 1 or 2 layers. I think the -2 is where everything starts. But we'll go downwards right here. And probably the tavern will be lined up right here. Our tavern is going to be enormous. I just want to give you a warning. I worked it on graph paper. It's all 3-dimensional. It's super cool. This is what happens when I watch the joy of painting. Every time the joy of painting comes on, I end up doing something really creative. Or at least things that I think are creative. Like I get the Legos out and I make like a square out of the Legos. And I don't know if you were this kid, but like when you were in like 2nd or 3rd grade or like primary school, if you're coming from overseas watching my videos, when you were in primary school or elementary school, there were always those kids that were like 10 years old, but they would make the most badass stuff out of Legos. They would be like, oh, I made this is from Battlestar Galactica. And he'd be like, oh my god, that looks just like the ship from Battlestar Galactica. Like, how the hell did you make that out of your own head? And then I would sit down with Legos, and when I got done with my Legos, I'd be like, look, I made a triangle. Or look, I made a strange assemblage that looks like nothing, but I'm going to say it's like a spaceship because you said yours was a spaceship. And I always felt like I was the retarded kid in primary school because I was terrible with Legos. And that's leaving completely aside those kids that were playing with erector sets. He was like, look, I got a Ferris wheel. I'm like, you little bastard, making me look all dumb in front of my mama. How dare you? But nowadays, those kids are all employed, and I'm here making Let's Plays. So, can't hate, never hate, you never know. Those damn kids and their erector sets and their Ferris wheels, and their pivots and engines. So back to task here. I get sidetracked really easily. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but sometimes I lose my train of thought. It doesn't stop at the station, but my train of thought just runs off into the horizon. Like, there is the specific train track that I want it to run on, and then it's just like, F you, and it grows wings and flies off, and then a dragon comes along, it's like, Arr! And carries the train off into the sunset. So, we are going to have to build these guys. Look, my idiot townies. God. And they should be able to jump 1 layer, but sometimes they get stuck, so we'll keep an eye on them just to make sure that they're digging downwards properly. And if they are, what we'll do is we'll build a stairway over in this corner, a nice, sexy stairway, and I'm slightly tempted to rebuild Fort Funsies just in a more efficient manner. Fort Funsies ended up being a little screwy. Fort Funsies was definitely a task to build. I built it completely in the wrong order. When I built Fort Funsies, looking back on it, I'm like, I should have built that completely in the reverse order. I should never have built that in the stepwise fashion that I did. It was just completely ass backwards. And so, taking those lessons to heart, because as long as you learn something, it wasn't time wasted. So what we'll do is, now that this is done, I think they should be able to hop out of the hole here, although they're sleeping in the hole, which makes me a little nervous. So what I'll do is, just as a precaution, we'll put a scaffolding in the corner, because your townies can be kind of dumb sometimes. And if they all hop into motion, yeah, sometimes they get stuck. Sometimes they can jump over things that are 1 higher, and sometimes they just say screw it and they don't bother. So they should finish up building a lot of this furniture. And we're not down into the dungeon just yet, but we should be shortly. And to avoid the problem that I'm going to have, if I lay down a tavern right here, just a general square tavern, just a placeholder, if I do that right now, the problem we're going to run into is we'll get a bunch of, well, bullshit heroes. There's no other way to put it. You will get a bunch of just completely unattractive heroes. You will get things like the barbarians, who are absolutely worthless. They never pick up weapons. They get themselves slaughtered left and right. They sleep on your floors. They spit on your walls. They pee in your milk buckets. It's just a mess. So I would rather keep barbarians the hell away from my town. They kind of wear out their welcome in Mount Worthless. I ended up actually just eventually trying to kill them. I would lock the dungeon doors and just let them starve. But for now, what we'll do is we'll dig downwards. I'm not going to go into the dungeon just yet. I'm going to look at my stone supply. What's our stone supply looking like for now? 52 stone. That's not very much. That is not very much stone, but it's something that we can start with. So what we will do is we'll get our other chairs started down here in our dining room. Actually, let's go to our decorative menu. We'll go indoors, and I'm going to place... We don't have any iron, so we can't put in clocks yet. We can make harps, though, so maybe we'll put in some nice, sexy harps. So we can have some troubadours show up. No dirges, though. Those guys are depressing. No dirges allowed, singing their depressing songs of death and sadness. I can't have all my townies committing suicide. I give them just enough rope already to hang themselves, so I wouldn't want to have to tighten the leash just because somebody comes along and sings a sad song, possibly about me. That would be really disappointing. And what we'll do is, I guess at the ends, we'll put some potted plants here. There we go. Some potted plants at the end, just some nice little happy plants. And then, can you tell I've been watching The Joy of Painting? We'll put in some, well, candlesticks maybe? Nah, we'll put in some harps. We'll put in some harps right in between there. There we are. Fantastic. And then maybe another candlestick here by the door, just to make sure people can see. I don't think candles are going to illuminate the building very well, but we do what we can with medieval technology. Now, I'm going to place, it takes 3 stone to make it, man, I want to use those stone tables, but it takes so much wood to place those tables, and I don't think we have enough. Now, I will place the benches for our future seating arrangement, however. And what have I done? What in the hell have I done? I have placed a table wrong. I've placed 2 tables wrong. My clicking skills are lacking. This is why I can't get a decent KD. There we are. Damn it. Townies? I'm going to blame that on them. My clicking inaccuracies are going to be blamed on my townies, just like everything else in this world. And what we need now, I'm going to put some indoor decorations that seem to make them happy. Let's put in some chests. Do chests need anything? It just needs wood. So we have plenty of that. We have loads and loads of wood. So what we'll do is we'll start placing all of these in place. Placing these where they go. Then everyone will have a chest. And then we'll also put in barrels. So there we are. We'll put in some barrels in everybody's houses, just so they have some storage concerns alleviated. And over here, maybe we'll put a barrel there, and I think a barrel there and a barrel there, maybe there, and there. Brunhild Altard does not have any barrels, so we'll make sure Brunhild Altard has a barrel. A reasonable barrel supply, there we go. Just because her last name is Altard, I feel kind of bad because she has Tard in her name. Kindergarten must have been really difficult for her. So now that we have all those things where we want them, what else can we work on? What else can we put in motion? I suppose we have a lot of things queued up, so maybe we'll take it easy for just a moment, and once this is done, we'll start thinking about maybe taking a day or 2 off, seeing if we can attract some new townies by putting in some new houses. Now, the criteria for getting new townies, you have to have housing for all of your available townies. Everybody has to be happy. I think over 50 happiness is about where you need to be at for a reasonable amount of time. And then the third criteria is you need extra empty houses. For whatever reason, they will not move in unless you have extra space for them. They will not sleep on the floors like the barbarians will. They actually require the finer things in life, like beds. So they refuse to sleep on the floor, so you need to furnish, well, not furnish, you need to make them just a little square place. I furnish it beforehand just because I don't like dealing with it later. But they will require at least a housing space to go and sleep on the floor in. So keep that in mind when you're trying to attract new residents. Now, we haven't gotten a merchant. I was kind of hoping we could get a small supply of iron in the early game so we can get an anvil going and get some of those basic things, but unfortunately, no one loves us. We sit and cry in our corner. Maybe we're smelly. Maybe our town is unfortunately odorous. Well, malodorous, I guess. But we have not attracted a merchant. Whatever the reason, a merchant has decided not to show up. They don't want to sell us their stuff. Maybe they just know that we're just a bunch of broke bastards and we have no money. We have nothing to our names, and they're like, screw those guys. We're not going to show up until they have some cash. So, God, that sound of things dying always makes me nervous. It was a rooster. And I think I'll run through all this stuff up here. You have announcements up in the top left corner. You have combat messages. Whenever that's blinking, you should probably give it a little look. And then you have hero messages. We aren't going to get any of those until heroes show up. That's basically that's combat messages that only go with heroes. And then system messages. And it's going to tell you when a siege comes through there. So keep an eye on these. If they're blinking red, something has happened, and you need to take a look and make sure that it's not ahead of you, or that you don't have a giant siege of slimes coming in to engulf everyone and turn them into a liquid gooey mess and exterminate you. So that all being said, I think this episode has just about run its course. My name is Splattercat. Thank you for joining me here today, and I hope that this has been helpful. These video series are always a blast for me. This is a game that I really enjoy, so it's easy for me to make videos, and I hope you will join me next time in the next part of our LP of Towns. See you next time, guys.